centre. I think my first impression was, how could such a bleak and isolated and hot place ever have been inhabited by anybody? And that in itself is, you know, Suakin is a very extreme place. It's a very popular and evocative idea. There's a sort of idealism about it because of its perfect roundness. It's like a pearl in the middle of a lagoon. You know, it has all kinds of connotations of magic, and the idea of coral houses, buildings built out of coral blocks, also has a concept, materiality, which is interesting. At the bottom. It's a very spectacular pair. I have to say, it's very, very beautiful. This replica is the most complete record we have of what it was like. So that one is the one which we're going to be working on when we go back this year, is to do a better survey of it. So that is the size of the original model. Okay, so this is the site museum, which we're busy reconstructing. This is one of the most decorated houses in Suakin. Oh, just there. So those three buildings are going to be the three buildings which will be restored as two museums and a rest house. There's the fragments we found. The excavation of the inside of the... Suakin is a metaphor in some ways for Islamic culture in Sudan. And when people are at school, they learn about Suakin. Suakin is seen to be the gateway to Islam. It's seen to be the entrance port to Mecca. It's the place they go to on the Hajj. So this is where people, in some ways, see their spiritual heart is based. Many people you'll speak to will tell you how sad they were the day they were asked to leave and how much they desire to come back here. What this means in reality is obviously going to be what this project will discover once the government agrees to let the people return to their houses. And all the houses you see here belong to families, and the building materials, even though the buildings are collapsed, belong to those families. So we have a problem when we're doing work here. If we need some more stones, we can't just go and take stones off a neighbouring building. Those stones belong to people. So even though you think there's no one living here, people do know what's going on here. And it's still, to many of the people in Suakin and in the surrounding towns, this is still somehow alive in their minds and their imagination.
Sometimes they use the oil of the shark, of the liver, with this type of glue, okay, and the red together. Because the smell of the shark, the barnacles, the weeds, and the barnacles that eat the wood will not come if the boat stay long at sea, because the smell is strong. Keeps away everything away. كويس.
حتى شغال معه كده.
الله ربنا يعني في الأول تعمل كم؟
بالأول والله يعني في السنة كنا نعمل حاجة بتاعت 10 15.
They arrived to the design of the Sambu, which is the best boat for the Red Sea. Because the Red Sea is not a big sea. So the waves are short waves, but very fast, one after the other. So it has to have you have a strong boat and a seaworthy boat that can cut the water and go. Because if it's not seaworthy, even with the engine, when the wave hit, it stops. But, you know, the design of the Sambuk will cut and go, you see, better than the square back boat, you see.
And this shows Suakin in 1956, after the port was closed in 1920 to move to Port Sudan.
We are here to know how we can participate you in your plan.
To destroy the Arab fleet, to take over the trade to the east. Their first port of call was Suakin.
كل المشاركين من قديم الزمان
وبخاصة أهل الثغر نحن نتوقع. You succeed to accumulate a lot of scientists behind the project, and this is.
It'll make a big difference.
Yeah, that's the way we can make progress. Their area may include the private owned buildings. This is an issue also we should do our level best to resolve. It's important for us people in the rest of the world to know the significance of the Suakin, to know the significance of the Red Sea, to know that Sudan is ready to interact with the people. Sudan is ready to be open to the people as it was before.
كانت مصرة كل مرة تقول هيمشي. يجوني هناك في الغالية.
After you the idea من have enough time you can come to him هدية.
شكرا.
وهو
شكرا جزيلا.
متعسف
أنا
يعني.
متشكر.
بيت جديد من هنا. ايوه. من هنا المينا.
نعم.
مينا، من هنا طريق قديم، من هنا طريق جديد، هنا كثير جديد طريق. اوكي. في راجل يجي هنا من أونيدو. Many places in Europe where buildings in the last 40 years have fallen and have been rebuilt again as they were before. And not only in Europe, in the world.
In the world.
Many places. For earthquakes, natural disasters, many situations where things are lost and then they are reconstructed again. This is no different at Suakin.
يقول له 12 الصلاة.
He just dug this out of the hill. Khalid's own invention. They used lime before. The outside was lime and the inside was mud. We reversed it.
Could have been a long afternoon in the desert.
All the way.
2 years.
2 years.
Maybe before.
Show us where your carbon dating comes from. So at least we know the truth.
You do good striation, boys.
Go on, Colin, do it again.
This is really typical of how the wood's deteriorating on the island. It just turns to this sort of fluff. And I don't exactly know why it happens, but it's, once the paint goes away, it's either the type of wood that they're using, or it's just the fact that there are like a lot of salts which are actually destroying the structure of the wood and actually causing this. There was another one on the other side matching it, but they actually weren't originally part of this building. They were taken from other buildings on the island and put on the wall in here for sort of decorative purposes. But this one fell down about 4 years ago. This one, we're planning to preserve it and at least prevent it from deteriorating any further, put it in boxes until a time when the museum can be opened and hopefully it will be back on display.
Now we're out here. Okay. We're actually in around here.
Yeah. Survived. They're not structural in the sense that they're giving it support, but they're locking it together and holding it to prevent lateral movement. But then the problem is when they get exposed, the timbers rot out. They're the first things to rot, which is why you get the lean, and the building starts twisting round. You lose the plaster course, and though it's a very thin layer of just lime plaster, as soon as you lose that, the water starts penetrating the main wall, washing out the earth, which is the bonding element, and the lime, which is on the surface, and then you can just see where the earth just pouring out, and they collapse from below. Each building has this very methodical, systemized building technique of lifts, and then the detail is in the ornament and the way the plaster's treated, and creating an incredibly diverse palette of buildings which have all gone.
Can I join him to dive?
No, you got a wetsuit.
I don't know if they just turned up. I just said hello. They're just people, tourists.
And just sit on that.
Yes, we are.
Looking underneath the water. What? Just looking underneath the water.
Don't fight it.
You just stand there.
I hate you.
Give your hand. Give your hands.
Do this work just to open the door for the people to do this work. We need people to do this job. Besides the mission staff, people from the mission, foreign mission, but we need our local marine activists. So I think we need them to do submarine activities. They will. Yes, it's very interesting. It's good. It is good for them to see a girl who encouraged to do that.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
There was one frame like this one, just there, that I was looking at getting out, but it seemed to be structural and holding up the wall, which obviously it was. But when we came in this morning, we looked down and there was a little black cat with the green eyes sitting right in the centre of the building. And there was the djinn, who's, he's saying, they don't want us here. These are our ruins.
A big one. Okay, bring your leg towards you. Okay, coming down. This is the house of Khurshid Effendi, one of the older houses of Sudan. So it's always been an important house, and it's the one that was chosen by us to be the Museum of Suakin. But the idea is this room will become the site museum. We have the blocks for this half of this arch, and if we can find the resources, we'll put this arch back in again as it was before, and then from the decoration that we've got in recording, we can actually put some of the decoration back. We found some people in Yemen who can do the carving, and they're prepared to come and do the work. And when we started work here, they came along and asked us why we were rebuilding their house, and we said it was for a museum, and they were very happy. And they still own the house, and they still own the building material we're using, but they have agreed to have it as used as a museum, which is very nice.